Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because we're diving into some material that is genuinely game-changing. Today we're looking at ancient texts from the Gospel of John, but, and here's the twist, we're looking at them through a highly practical psychological lens. Think of it as a step-by-step guide for emotional healing and letting go of the heavy burdens that are holding you back. If you've ever felt totally stuck in the past, paralyzed by a harsh inner critic, or just weighed down by grudges you can't seem to shake, this is exactly what you need. In our crazy high-stress world, burnout is so often fueled by the unresolved emotional baggage we carry around every single day. We're literally dragging our past into our present, and honestly, it's exhausting. But by translating these ancient narratives into actionable psychological principles, we can actually learn how to finally put that baggage down.
So, here is our roadmap for today's journey. First, we'll unpack the actual weight of unforgiveness. Then, we hit Step 1, drop self-judgment. Step 2, wash the memory. Step 3, breathe and release. And finally, we'll look at the ultimate goal, experiencing the fullness of life. Let's jump right in.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the weight of unforgiveness.
Okay, before we can heal, we really have to redefine the problem, right? We usually think of forgiveness as this huge favor we're doing for someone else, kind of like we're graciously letting them off the hook. But the psychological reality, it's so much more personal than that. Refusing to forgive is literally like picking up a heavy, jagged stone and just choosing to carry it with you everywhere you go. It weighs you down during your commute, it sits on your chest when you're trying to sleep, and it gets in the way when you try to embrace the people you actually love. And the crazy part? The person who hurt you probably has no idea you're even holding it. It's just bruising your own hands and draining your energy. We cling to these stones thinking they're shields, but they're really just anchors keeping us stuck.
The source material actually nails this dynamic beautifully. Consider this moment after the resurrection, where Jesus says, "If you forgive people's sins, they are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." Now, don't look at this as some strict religious duty or a cosmic scorecard. Think of it as a profound, transformative psychological truth. You have incredible agency here. When you refuse to forgive, you are the one who stays bound. You're the one shackled to the offense. But when you choose to release it, you're unlocking your own emotional prison. Realizing that you actually hold the key is your very first step toward genuine freedom.
So how do we actually turn that key? It's easy to say just let it go, but how do we practically do it? Well, we've extracted 3 super practical psychological tips from these texts that form a complete step-by-step guide to emotional healing. Let's break down each of these 3 steps right now and apply them to our daily lives. Moving right into our second section, which is Step 1, drop self-judgment.
This first step is arguably the most crucial, especially if you're someone constantly battling an intense, paralyzing inner critic. The text gives us this incredible example with the story of the woman caught in adultery. Just imagine the scene. An angry, self-righteous crowd, literally holding stones, completely eager to condemn her. The tension is through the roof. But Jesus doesn't match their anger. He just pauses and hits them with this: "Whichever one of you has committed no sin may throw the first stone." Boom. In an instant, he completely flips the script. He disarms their external judgment by forcing them to look in the mirror at their own flawed humanity.
And here is exactly how this connects to our modern struggles. Self-criticism is basically you picking up that very first stone and hurling it right at yourself over and over again. We are almost always our own harshest accusers, holding ourselves to these totally impossible standards. So here is a massive tip for your emotional healing journey. You've got to start catching yourself in the act. When you mess up at work or have a fight with a friend, do you instantly call yourself stupid? Stop right there. Notice that inner aggression. Ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If not, you have to drop the stone. You literally cannot heal if you're constantly attacking your own reflection.
Because true, lasting forgiveness, it has to start entirely with you. When that angry crowd finally walked away, Jesus turned to the woman and said, "I do not condemn you either. Go, but do not sin again." He offered a completely clean slate. You need to actively make that exact same choice for your own mind. Choose to accept the grace that's already there for you. Let go of that toxic shame keeping you stuck, and deliberately drop that heavy stone of self-condemnation. Give yourself permission to be beautifully, completely imperfect.
All right, Section 3, which brings us to Step 2, wash the memory.
Now, how do we handle the deep pain caused by other people? Well, consider this radical moment. Jesus actually washed the feet of Judas, fully knowing Judas was about to betray him in the worst way imaginable. It beautifully illustrates that we can practice what the text calls restorative washing. You wash the memory of the person who hurt you by intentionally letting go of the bitterness binding you to that event. And listen, this next point is probably the most liberating psychological insight of this whole explainer. You do absolutely not have to trust someone in order to forgive them. Let me say that again because it's a huge hurdle. Trust and forgiveness are totally separate things. Trust has to be earned. Forgiveness is just a unilateral decision to untie the toxic emotional knot inside your own stomach. You can set firm boundaries, protect yourself, and never trust them again while still completely washing away the bitterness.
Let's look at the story of Peter for an even deeper psychological truth here. Peter was carrying crushing guilt because he denied even knowing Jesus 3 times during his darkest hour. But when it was time for restoration, Jesus didn't demand some punitive, groveling apology. He didn't ask for a detailed explanation. Instead, he just asked this deeply restorative question, "Do you love me?" By doing this, he cut right past the shame and gave Peter a renewed purpose. It shows us that the ultimate goal of forgiveness is really about restoring your own capacity to love and connect, rather than trying to balance some imaginary scales of justice.
Which leads us to Section 4, Step 3, Breathe and Release.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This step-by-step process sounds amazing in theory, but what if letting go just feels entirely impossible? What if the trauma is so severe that forgiveness feels like a mountain you just can't climb? Well, the text acknowledges a deep, frustrating truth. Trying to forgive using only our own human willpower is often totally useless when we're deeply hurt. Our biology demands justice. It wants to hold on to the pain to protect us from getting hurt again. Trying to force yourself to forgive through sheer willpower alone usually just leads to frustration and suppressed emotions. We simply need something more.
That's exactly why Step 3 is about receiving what the Source calls the new breath. When you're struggling in that place of impossible pain, you need a practical intervention. First, literally stop. Take a deep breath. Pause your nervous system stress response. Ground yourself. Then, ask for a spirit of truth. Seek out an external clarity to help fundamentally shift your perspective. What does that actually mean? It means consciously choosing to view the situation through the lens of grace instead of the lens of your injury. It's remembering that hurt people hurt people. Stepping back and asking for the wisdom to see the bigger, often tragic picture of why someone acted out, that creates the vital psychological space your mind needs for real healing to enter.
Finally, Section 5, the fullness of life. Let's bring this all together.
Why do we do all this hard work? Why put in the agonizing effort to drop those stones, wash the memories, and shift our lenses? Because unforgiveness keeps you totally trapped in a dark, suffocating tomb of the past. It forces you to replay old injuries on a loop, keeping the wounds fresh. But the profound act of forgiving is entirely different. Forgiving is the voice calling you out into the warm light. It's the open invitation to finally be untied from your emotional bandages and step forward into what can be. You're essentially bringing yourself back to life.
The source material emphasizes in John 10:10 that the ultimate goal here is life in all its fullness. This psychological path isn't about judgment or appeasing an angry deity or following arbitrary religious rules. The truth isn't meant to trap us, it's meant to set us entirely free. This whole framework is about saving us from our own destructive mental patterns. By dropping the stones and washing the memories, we literally make room for a vibrant, unburdened existence. We create the capacity to experience joy, connection, and peace at their absolute maximum potential.
You were meant for the light, not the darkness. The fullness of life is waiting just outside the tomb of your past grievances. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final vital thought to reflect on today. What heavy, jagged stone of self-criticism or past hurt are you finally ready to let go of so you can step out of the tomb? Stop carrying the weight, drop the stone. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.